So in First Timothy 4 and 12, we're saying that they call themselves believers. So the reason why we go to these precepts is because there's nowhere in the precepts where the disciples called each other Christians. Like we said, that name first originated in Acts 11:26. So in Acts 11:26, that's when the disciples first heard the name Christian. They were like, "What? Christian? What's that?" So they was surprised when they started hearing the name Christian. Okay, it wasn't anything that they were calling themselves at the time. All right, and like I said earlier, the name Christian could have not been applied by the early disciples themselves because it was imposed upon them by the Gentiles. Once they entered into the Gentile world, all right. Once they entered into that Gentile world setting, then that's when the word Christian started really getting pushed upon them. Okay, so let's go to let's see. Let's get back to this book. Back to the book. Yeah, probably find write a little down from where you were. So as these churches emerged from the synagogues, so when the disciples went into Antioch, they was going into the synagogues. You have to understand the churches that they were going in was the synagogues, and the Christianity predominantly, which was Gentiles, took its place among the religions of the world. So worldwide, the Christianity religion predominantly took over. All right, and it wasn't nothing that we could do because they seen the growing cult of the Christian religion, what was against Christ, and they knew that as long as it grew, the harder it was going to be for the true truth to come out. All right, now if they didn't let this religion grow, then they had nothing to stand on. By the time I'm my age, which is 37 now, I would have been known the truth. But since the Christian religion grew so much at this point, they continue to let it grow. Just now, that way when I get to my age, everybody that's my age are so duped, you can't tell them the truth because this is all they know. All right, let them know where you're at.
We're in Experiencing the World Religions book, page 366. We're going in deeper insights on Greek and Roman religion and early Christianity. It says, since some of their gods came from the same source, the classical religions of the Greeks and the Romans show many similarities.
So I'll tell you that the gods that the Greeks have, so when the Romans took down the Greeks, they just followed the same gods that the Greeks were following, which is when you break down Greek mythology, it's the planets, like I was saying. Jupiter's the head of them all. Go.
But their religions were made of layers and were constantly evolving. The earliest layers existing before recorded history came from the veneration of local gods and nature spirits, often worshipped at sacred wells, groves, and roadside shrines.
So it tells you that these people had local gods that they were following. They was doing so much. All right, they had religions that had layers of different gods recorded from history. So they had all these different gods that they were following, all these different religions. All right, venerations of local gods, different spirits. It says, and nature spirits often worshipped at sacred wells. All right, and what does it mean when it says local gods? Go to Baali in the Zondervan's Bible dictionary, down at the bottom.
We have Baali.
Sure,
We're in the Zondervan's Bible dictionary, and it reads, the common name for all local gods, as well as Jehovah. Hosea demands the...
Okay. So it says Baali, so local gods means Baali is all the common name for all local gods, which is Jehovah. All your local gods is Allah, Jesus. Any idol that's being worshipped as a god and not a higher is a local god. Read that last part when it says the earliest. No, but there.
The middle of the paragraph in Experiencing the World Religions, it says, but their religions were made of layers and were constantly evolving. The earliest layers existing before recorded history came from the veneration of local gods and nature spirits, often worshipped at sacred wells, groves, and roadside shrines.
Okay, go ahead.
And we're going down a little. It reads, there were occasional attempts at creating a complete system of deities.
So since we just read where it says in earlier history, they had layers and layers of gods, all right, that they were going in between, local gods with different spirits. But then it says, then there were occasional attempts at creating a complete system of deities. So they say, hey, we're tired of dealing with all these different spirits and different gods. We need one complete system. Go ahead.
We find one such attempt, for example, in the works of Homer, the Iliad, and the Odyssey, placing the major Greek gods on Mount Olympus, living in a kind of extended family under the care of the sky god.
The sky god, who's the sky god? Which is Zeus. So it tells you that they were trying to complete a system of deities, all right, which was perfect, all right. And then they says, we found one such attempt. So we finally found one such attempt, which is under the works of Homer, all right. And this sky god, which is Zeus, is placed on Mount Olympus. So we finally found our system of deities that we need to find. Okay? So when you think about it, the Jews, since they denied, so since the true Jews denied Yeshua Christ when he was alive, they wouldn't have never even known what the true truth was anyway, since they wasn't following Christ. A lot of the true Jews wasn't following Christ when he was here. But the true Jews that was following Christ, they would have never originated the name Christians. Alright? They was too busy following Baal. So a lot of our people was following the wrong people anyway. Well, how would they come up with the name Christians? They would just a lot of our people have been followers from the beginning. Even when the Most High gave us the land, he said, as long as you just go into the land, show them who I am, don't follow their gods, you guys are good. We couldn't even do that. Our people have always been somewhat followers. So how are we gonna come up with the name Christians? All right, read this information.
We're coming from the Eastern Dictionary, cross.
Well, it's under cross. So in the Eastern Dictionary, it's under the word cross.
Constantine the Great, 313 BC. The cross first came into use as an emblem of Christianity. He pretended at a critical moment that he saw a flaming cross in the heavens bearing the inscription, "By this sign thou shalt conquer," and that on the following night Christ himself appeared and ordered him to take for his standard a sign of this cross.
So Constantine the Great in 313 BC says he seen a flaming cross in the sky. All right, and at this time the Spirit of Christ came to him and told him to take standard for this cross. All right, now a lot of people, when they look up Constantine, Wikipedia or something, it says Constantine 412 AD. So a lot of people they think that Constantine was after Christ. So that's why they give the Christian religion a little pump, because they say, well, it was after Christ, so it sounds correct. No, Constantine the Great was 313 BC, which was before Christ. Constantine is one of those other things that's like the Pope. It's a title. It wasn't a person. It's the title. You had different Constantines. You had Constantine 1, Constantine 2, Constantine 3, whoever. It was more than one. And this guy said he seen the cross in the sky, which and the Spirit of Christ came to him and told him to now follow this cross. Because at his time, people were so scared of the cross, they didn't want to have nothing to do with it. Read that last part right here.
It says, cross. In this form, a new standard called the Labarium was accordingly made and borne by the Roman armies. It remained the standard of the Roman army till the downfall of the Western Empire.
So it tells you that the cross was borne by the Roman armies. And it's telling you that the Roman armies, they used it in a lot of different ways. Okay? They had it on their shields. Alright, when you seen the Roman army shields, they had it on their shields. It was a sign of victory, the cross was. Alright? So if I defeated this tribe of people, I would now put a cross right there to let people know that this section has been defeated. The sign of the cross, the emblem of the cross. That's why the Ku Klux Klans back in the day, when they came in and they burned down a house and tortured someone's house, what would they do at the end? Burn a cross in the yard. That was a sign of victory. Okay? So Constantine was following the same practices as the Syrians. Alright? Read this part right here.
It reads, in 301 BC, shortly after the Battle of Ipsus, which made him master of Syria, Seleucus Nicator rounded the city of Antioch, naming it after the father of Antiochus, guided, it was said, by the flight of an eagle.
So now we're going to read a little information about Antiochus in 301 BC. So remember, Antiochus is just a title too. You had different King Antiochus. All right, that you didn't have just one, different ones. It's a title. Okay, go ahead. And so, and they said all this what we're about to read is in 301 BC. So right around the same time, King Constantine, Constantine the Great. Right before, this is before Constantine the Great, right? But it's around the same time. But Constantine the Great was 313 BC. This is 301 BC. So it's before Constantine. Go ahead.
It reads, in the early history of Christianity, Antioch occupies a distinguished place. The large and flourishing Jewish colony offered an immediate field for Christian teaching.
So Christian teaching started in 301 BC. So this is shortly after the time of Constantine the Great seeing the cross. Alright? Constantine the Great seeing it 313 BC. Right afterwards, 301 BC, they says, now let's start teaching the Christianity, which is this religion we're about to start pushing throughout the world for generation, for generation, for generation. Read that whole part again.
In the early of Christianity, Antioch occupied a distinguished place. The large and flourishing colony offered an immediate field for Christian teaching, and the cosmopolitanism of the city tended to widen the outlook of the Christian community, which refused to be confined within the narrow limits of the Jews. Antioch was cradled of Gentile Christianity and of Christian missionary enterprise. It was at the instance of the church at Antioch that the council at Jerusalem decided to relieve Gentile Christians of the burden of the laws of the Jews.
So it says in the middle of this, and the cosmopolitan of the city tended to widen the outlook of Christian community, which refused to be confined with the narrow limits of the Jews. So they refused to have the laws of the Jews interjected in this religion. They refused to have anything with what we was reading of the Jews with this. And then at the end of it, it says the Gentile Christians of the burden of the let me see, and it was at the instance of the church at Antioch that the council at Jerusalem decided to relieve Gentile Christians of the burden of the laws of the Jews. So these Gentile Christians didn't have to follow the laws of the Jews. That's why it says it relieved them of the burden. All right, so now they were following a religion that had nothing to do with the true Jews or the laws. Okay, go back to the book, the college book. So now our people. So how is it that we can now be a part of a religion that was here already before Christ? Information we just read was 301 BC. And then Constantine the Great, when he seen that in the sky, was 313 BC. So how is it that we are following a religion, our people are following a religion and a cross that has nothing to do with Christ, came before him? Don't make sense. It's Roman and Greek. It's from the Roman and Greek. It has nothing to do with Hebrew. So there's so many different ways you can break this down, and it don't add up. All right, go ahead.
We're on page 367 in the Experiencing World Religions. It says, Roman religious practice along with astrology that it borrowed from Syria and Greece believed in hidden correspondence between gods, months, days, and planets.
So it tells you right here. My fault. Finish that. I didn't mean to cut you off. Finish. Read it. Go to God's months and days and planets again.
It says, hidden correspondence between God, months, days, and planets.
All right. So it tells you that the Roman religious practice, along with astrology, so your science, borrowed from Syria. So it tells you that the Romans borrowed all these things from Syria, which is King Antiochus. We read earlier in this lesson that King Antiochus said that he didn't want a Jew to follow the laws of Ahiah or follow the Sabbath. They were to forget all of their laws. So King Antiochus, his rules, they liked his custom. So the Romans, when they took over the Greeks followed the same practices of the Syrians, and then Romans, when they took over the Greeks, followed these same practices. And through their practices and through their religions, so the Roman religious practices, what it says, the Roman religious practice along with astrology that is borrowed from Syria and Greece believed in hidden correspondence. What was the hidden correspondence? Hidden correspondence means you won't be able to figure this out. It's a mystery. Hidden correspondence. So they did hidden correspondence between gods, months, and days and planets. So between months, days, and planets, they interjected their gods, and this is what you follow. So like I said earlier, Jupiter is Jesus, which Jupiter, Zeus, Jesus is Jesus. But this is what they did, hidden correspondence to where you can't figure it out. If you don't dig deep enough and read between the lines, you'll never see this. But they brought these religions in, and then Constantine, oh, I see a cross in the sky. Oh, let's go follow the cross. Oh, the Spirit of Christ came to me and says, stand up for this. Go follow it. Be the man that brings the cross into play, because at that time people were scared of the cross. Read what it says right here about the cross.
We have cross as the emblem of a slave's death and a murderous punishment. The cross was naturally looked upon with profoundest horror. But after the celebrated vision of Constantine, he ordered his friends to make a cross of gold and gems such as he had seen.
So it tells you right here that the cross itself, it was an emblem of the slave's death and a murderous punishment. So people was scared of the cross. The cross was naturally looked upon as horror. All right, but after the celebrated vision of Constantine, people started looking at the cross great. Why? Because after Constantine seen that vision, he went and started decorating the crosses, putting gold gems on them and making them look really pretty. So this is what you see right now in the Roman churches, the Catholic churches. You see all these decked out crosses and stuff. That was after the division of Constantine. Right? And the people no longer now are scared of the cross. The people say, all right, then, well, hey, if Constantine said it was good, then let's follow the cross. All right, let's go to Acts 13:1. So this religion in every way was starting to be pushed upon our people, between the emblem with the cross, between the name of the religion, Christians, all the way to the name, Jesus. He's a white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes, all of it's false.
We're in the book of Acts 13:1. Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger, and Lucius of Cyrene, and Manaen, which had been brought up with Herod the Tetrarch, and Saul.
So it tells you right here that disciples again, right? They was at a certain church in Antioch, so they still in Antioch, but now they go to a different church. Now they being called Niger. So they're being mocked again. So other churches they was being called Christians, now they're being called Niger. Right? It's like, dang, can the disciples get any respect here at Antioch? No, because the king Antiochus says, hey, we're going to convert y'all into who we are. Break down Niger.
We got Niger, 3526. And it is Niger, and it is black, Niger, a Christian.
A black Christian. Niger is a black Christian. So when the disciples came in to the churches and the people of Syria seen how dark they was, they called them black Christians. Niger. So not only did they call them, so the other churches was calling them Christians, mocking them. And then when they go to the other church, it calls them black, not only Christians, but black Christians because the disciples were black. So if the disciples were black, then what color was Christ? But they tell you that Christ was white. Right? That's when you go to certain precepts, it don't say Christ was white. It says Christ had hair like wool. It said his skin looked like it had been dipped in the furnace. Let's go to Revelations. Revelations 1:13.
In the book of Revelation, chapter 1, verse 13. And in the midst of the and in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, 1 and 13.
Yeah.
One like unto the Son of Man, clothed in a white garment down to the foot, and girt about with paps, with the golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire.
So it tells you that his hair on his head was like wool. Okay? And white as snow. But it tells you that his hair was like wool and his eyes were like the flame of fire. So Christ is coming back upset. Alright? There's going to be nothing nice about what Christ is going to do when he come back. But it says his hair was like wool. Next verse.
And his feet like unto a fine brass, as if they would burn in a furnace. And his voice is the sound of many waters.
So it says his voice was like the sound of many waters, and his feet looked like fine brass, as if they were burning in the furnace. So it's almost like taking a penny. It's like taking a penny and putting it in the furnace. Okay? And it getting a little dark. That's the penny. But people said Christ was white. Hair like wool. This is what we got here. Woolly texture, you know, and nothing straight about it. Okay. Who was that? Okay. Yeah. So, you know, we got to get down to the truth on our own, because a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to go with tradition. My family did this, I'm going to do it. And that's the problem here, when we should be really searching for our own selves, because the truth shall set you free is what's the main agenda here. Okay? Let's go to Romans 6:22.
We're in the book of Romans, chapter 6, verse 22. But now being made free from sin and become servants to the Most High, ye have your fruit unto holiness, and the end everlasting life.
Alright, so, hey, you have now been made free from sin. You become a servant unto a higher. Alright? You're no longer a slave to the agenda that Martin Luther King pushed. See, people don't realize that they was thinking that Martin Luther King was pushing an agenda to make us free, but he actually pushed us more and more into a mental slavery now. you to where now you're a slave under the so-called white man and their rules and their laws. He's the master. You're a slave to him. But right here it says, but now being made free from sin. So once you find Christ and find your truth and find out who you are now being made free from sin. Now you have the opportunity to repent and get away from the sin. That's what that means. It don't mean, all right, once I find Christ, I no longer sin. Because you got people out there that believe that once they find Christ, they don't sin no more. Nah, come on, man. You sin every day. You have to save your soul every night before you go to sleep. Every morning when you wake up, you asking for forgiveness. You asking to be saved. There's no such thing as, oh, I found Christ now. I'm pure. I'm clean. I don't sin no more. I know I'm born. I know I'm saved. No. That's not true. There's not one man that knows he's saved. How we know that? Let's go to it. Let's go to Ezekiel, I want to say 3 and 19. Let's see. Not one person is saved. You have to work on it every day. Every day. Alright. Let's see. Yeah, start at 19.
We in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 3, verse 19.
Nah, that's it. Hold on. 17.
17. Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word at my mouth, and give them warning from me.
So it says, hey, I have made you a watchman. What's a watchman? Somebody that can go talk to the house of Israel. And it says, give them warning from me. So what I'm doing tonight is giving information, warning people of this religion that they're following. Go ahead.
We're in verse 18. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt...
Actually, you know what? Just jump down to 20 because I don't want to go too deep in this. Jump down into the verse 20.
Verse 20. Again, when a righteous man do a turn from his righteousness, he commit iniquity, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die. Because thou hast given him, because thou hast not given him warning, he shall die in his sin. And his righteousness which he hath done shall not be remembered, but his blood will I require at thine hand.
So there's no such thing as a man being saved. You have to work on it every day. There's no such thing as, oh, I know I'm saved. No, it says right here, the Most High says, if I put a stumbling block before you and you die, and you have no warning to change that sin that you did before, you did something wrong, because it said beginning, if you commit a sin before I lay a stumbling block before you, and if you don't have no warning to change that sin, the only thing Ahia is going to remember is the wrong that you did before you died. No matter all the works you did. Alright? So you have to keep yourselves on the right path every day by asking for forgiveness. Alright? Let's go to so Romans 6 and 22 says, but now being made free from sin and become servants to Ahia. Let's break down the word servant.
We have servants. It is G1401. G1401. We have doulos. We have doulos, and it is a slave.
Alright, so a slave. Servant means slave. Alright, or bondage. Okay? Let's go to 1 Peter 2 and 16.
We in the book of 1 Peter 2 and 16. As free and not using your liberty for a cloak of maliciousness, but as servants of the Most High.
So he says, as free and not using your liberty. So you're not using your freedom. You're not using what's your liberty. What's your liberty? Christ. A cloak of maliciousness. Maliciousness is bad. But as the servant of the Most High, so he says, I need you to be the servants of the Most High. But you people are choosing not to even use what's available to you. You want to cloak to the malicious ways, the badness. You want to do that. But he says, hey, I got what you need, which is Christ. Find him, wake up, all right, and you will save yourself. But the Christian religion is what's got a lot of people that's going right to hell right now, because, trust me, I know there's some good people that's in the Christian religion. Yeah, people say, well, what can we do then? This is what we're taught. I mean, so you're telling me that I'm following this religion and I know my heart is good, and well, it says, the Bible says your heart, if you follow your heart, the heart is wicked. It don't say follow your heart, it says follow me. Right? And no other gods. So when you follow these religions, you're following other gods. So I'm not the judge. I can't tell you if you're going to the place of torment or to Abraham's bosom. I can't tell you that. Okay? Alright, so if we were slaves of Christ, alright, so that's what we just read in 1 Peter 2:16, that we are slaves of Christ. We are slaves to Ahia, the Most High. But when they captured us, they knew this. They knew we were slaves to the Most High. So what did they do? They said, well, then we're going to control y'all through a way to where we make you now slaves of us mentally through the Spirit. So now through the Spirit, when you worship these religions, you're now a slave to the government, because now you're worshiping their idols. You're not a slave to the one and only master, which is the Most High. All right? Let's go to Acts. Actually, no, let's just skip that part. Let's go ahead and read this information right here.
It says, Christian means slave of Christ, which comes from Christos. In the familiar Greek slave name, Christos, and Caesarian means slave of Caesar.
So it tells you right here the name Christian, which the word Christian, which means slave of Christ. All right, this is what they tell you. This is what it means, but this is a Greek name, though. All right, it's a Greek name, and that's a Greek meaning. Okay, and it says that it originates from the name of Caesar. All right, but like I told you earlier, the word Christian was before Christ, but became a major religion after his death. So the use of the word became really popular, and like I said, they started using it amongst themselves. They became real proud of calling the disciples Christians. Alright? And there was a byword being used as a religion. Now it's a religion because the Greek, what we're reading out of here, the Greek and the Roman says, hey, we like how the people of Christ is already trained that this is their religion, so let's just make it one worldwide religion. Alright? And they did it by taking and putting Zeus as the main deity, which is Jupiter. Okay? Let's go back to this book. Let's finish out. Right over. Sit them down some. Right here, son.
It says we're in same experiencing world religions. Page 366, the last paragraph. It says, trying to give some order to the divine confusion, Romans began to teach that their gods and goddesses were the same as those worshipped under varied names in other cultures. Here, as an illustration, is a small sample of the Roman deities that were seen as parallel with the Greek god.
So it says to give some order to this confusion, because I know with the information that we're bringing at this time, people are a little confused. We're saying, well, man, what is he talking about up there? We never knew none of this, that Jesus is Jupiter, which is Zeus, and Christian religion came from 313 BC and all this. What's going on here? So it says to give some divine confusion, some order to the divine confusion. By the way, their gods that they worship and their goddesses were also worshiping other cultures. So it lets you know that a lot of these gods and goddesses that they worship was being worshipped in other times. King Nimrod in the Tower of Babel. A lot of these practices is coming from him, way back then. All right, let's break. Go ahead. So who are they guys? It's going to break down who they guys are. Go ahead.
Jupiter, Zeus.
Jupiter is Zeus. This is in this book. All right, this is in this college course. When you want to go find out about religions and things like that, like I say, this is the Greek and Roman religions, early Christianity, and it tells you that Jupiter is Zeus, which is Zeus is Jesus, which is Jesus. It's simple. It's right there. Go ahead.
Sky and rain god, father of the god.
He's the father of the gods.
We have Juno, wife of Jupiter. Zeus, patron of wives and marriage. Venus, goddess of love.
Venus is the goddess of love. All right, so Venus is the daughter of Zeus, which is Semiramis. All right, which is Isis. Okay, you see that militant group right now pushing through Iraq called ISIS. That was her name in the kingdom of Egypt. Semiramis, which is Venus. All right, daughter of Jupiter. Go ahead.
Mercury, messenger God, and
go ahead.
Patron of business.
All right, Mercury was the messenger guy. He was the guy that did the business. So that's the IRS. So, all right, so the IRS, they get their powers from the spirit of Mercury, the feds. All right, your banks, the messenger. All right, this is the messenger, the patron of business. Go ahead.
Mars, god of war.
Mars is the god of war. So Mars is where they get their spirit from when it's time to go to war. All right, they call on to Mars. Go ahead.
Bacchus, god of intoxication and ecstasy.
So Bacchus is your god that's coming in with all the different the drugs and things like that, the spirits of the demons and all of them demon spirits, but your sorceries and things like that. Go ahead.
Pluto, god of the underworld and afterlife.
So when you die and you go to the place of torment, Pluto is the god that's preventing you from being able to cross over from the place of torment into Abraham's bosom, which is paradise. You are now locked in the hands of the Satan and all these other demon planets that have now been killed off, but spirit-wise, they are now being still worshipped. Every time you call on one of these planets, this is what you're doing. Worshiping their gods and their religion. And Jupiter, which is Zeus, which is Jesus, is the main god that's being worshipped. Alright, go ahead. Alright, over here.
It reads, we're in 367, it says, of great importance to the formation of Christianity were the Greek and the Roman mystery religion.
So this is important. So it tells you right here, so of great importance to the formation of Christian and Greek Roman religion. So it tells you right here where it came from. And it says the Greek and the Roman religion was mystery religions. Read that part again.
It says of great importance to the foundation of Christianity or the Greek and Roman mystery religion. So named because initiates vowed not to disclose the details of their initiations and practices.
So it says the people that came up, these Romans and these Greeks that came up with this mystery religion, they name initiates vows. So they vow not to disclose. So they pinky swear not to disclose how they came up with this. That's what it just says. So they name because initiates vowed not to disclose the details of their initiations and practices. Go ahead. Let's keep this a secret. All right.
These typically involved an instruction, purification, rite, a sharing of sacred food or drink, and a revelatory experience. We see clear echoes in the early training of would-be Christians, the catechumens, in baptisms and in Eucharistics rites.
So it says we see clear echoes in the early training of would-be Christians. So we said so in the beginning stages. So when the Romans and the Greeks came up with this mystery religion, in the early training. So they said now we got to put some people in charge to train. So in the early training of the would-be Christians, the catechumens. What's the catechumens? Let's break down what the word catechumen means. Go ahead.
We have catechumen, says to teach, to instruct, to resound. A catechist is a teacher who instructs his pupils in the elements of his own religion.
So a catechumen is someone who teaches his own religion. So they were now teaching their own religion, which is the mystery religion, which is Christians. Christian religion. Read that last part again, where it says these typically involved in instruction.
These typically involved in instruction, purification rite, a shaving of sacred food or drink, a revelatory experience. We see clear echoes in the early training of would-be Christians, the catechumens. Baptism and Eucharistic rites. As Roman Empire expanded during the time of Jesus and early Christianity, it imported the exotic worship of gods from Asia Minor, Turkey, Persia.
Alright, so it tells you right here that these Romans were expanding during this time of Christianity. So they were getting big and they were worshiping gods from all over, but their main religion had become Christianity. Okay? And they were pushing this religion worldwide. Okay, and the Roman religion, the Romans at that time were the biggest empire. So whatever they were doing, other people started doing. All right, last part of the lesson. Break down the letter J.
We have the letter J. A swash is a typographical flourish, such as an exaggerated serif, terminal, tail, entry stroke, on a glyph. The use of a swash characters dates back to at least the 16th century, as they can be seen in Ludovico Vincento di Gelli, Argi la Oprina, which is dated 1522.
So it says in 1522, this is when you can date back to 1522 is when they started putting the swash on the J, which was originally the I. In 1522, they started doing this. But before 1522, it was just an I. But once this time came around, in the 1600s, somebody went back and said, hey, 1522, we seen somebody put the swash at the end and made this a J. All right, go ahead.
It reads, a distinctive usage emerged in the Middle High German. Gian Giorgio Trisinos, 1478-1550, was the first to explicitly distinguish I and J as representing separate sounds in his Pistola del Trisinos.
So it says Trisinos was the first person, all right, to distinguish that I and J represented separate sounds. Go ahead.
Trisinos' epistle about the letters recently added in the Italian language, 1524.
So this was in 1524. So a lot of people try to tell you that the I and J is the same thing, but he tells you right here that they represented separate sounds. All right, go ahead.
Originally, I and J were different shapes for the same letter, both equally representing I and J.
So and then 1524, they changed it to where they both represented the same letter, being I and J. And now that's why we get what we see today when people take the word Jesus or Zeus and it's represented as Jesus. Alright? And Jesus in Greek says what?
We have Jesus, which is G2424. We have Jesus, Jesus, and it is Hebrew origin. Jesus, that is Joshua. The name of our power and three other Israelites.
So they tell you that the word Jesus, Jesus means Jesus, which is Zeus. Okay? But they try to tell you that it was represented as Joshua when we all know that was false too. They was trying to find a way to tie Zeus to something that we knew that was ours. Okay? Read to the last part.
It says Rome was then associated with Antichrist. But when Christianity was established under Constantine, professors looked at the church's temporal prosperity as fulfilling the prophecy and ceased to look for Christ's promised reign on earth. Popery beforehand usurps the earthly throne which Christ shall assume only at his appearing.
So Christ is going to come back and take the Pope down, and all these people that brought in this fake religion and all these different things that people are following today behind these images and things that people don't have a clue. It says that Christ, when he comes back for his appearing, he's coming straight for the Pope. Go ahead.
A primary historical fulfillment of the symbols is likely typical of the ultimate and exhaustive fulfillment in which toward the close shall vindicate God's grand scheme as a whole before the universe. Hence, language is used in part answering to the primary historical event, but awaiting the full realization in the close of this present age.
So it says the realization that people have been following the wrong religion is going to hit worldwide. It's going to hit the universe. A grand scheme. All right, it's going to be big. When people finally realize that they have been following the wrong ways of the Pope, because the Pope just kept the Syrian ways going. The Syrian king, which was King Antiochus. The Pope now, what we see is how they used to worship King Antiochus, and then it became King Constantine, King Nebuchadnezzar. So it just now it's the Pope. Right now the Pope is the big thing worldwide. You hear the Pope, people say, "Oh, the Pope," they fall down and worship. So now he is the one that continued these practices that all these other kingdoms were following back in these times. Alright? But they got it so screwed up now to where it's easy to figure out something's wrong. The Pope, the Romans, and these guys push this religion, but then yet, when you look at what they do in Rome, they follow something completely different than what they got people following here in America. Got two different Christianity, two different Christians. The popes, they are Catholics, but they're the ones that created this mystery religion. So if they created this mystery religion, why are they not following it? Why are they following something completely different? They're Catholics and they worship Mary, along with the cross. The cross is big in the Catholic churches. Why? Because the cross represents victory over Christ. Once they kill Christ, then they bring that cross out and stomp it out. It's victory over Christ. So like I read earlier where the cross came from. So that's why when you go into a bunch of these Roman buildings and these Catholic churches, the first thing you're going to see is a big decked out, gold pearled out cross, because it's after Constantine. It's victory over Christ. But nobody asks questions. Nobody asks questions when they go down to Rome and wonder why the taxi cab driver, the first thing he asks him to say, do you want to go down the Via Sacred Way to see the temple of Jupiter? The images of Jupiter. But you won't know this stuff because a lot of people don't visit Rome. Alright? These are the type of things that they don't show you right off the bat, but once you get there, these are the type of things you see when you go in these buildings. Naked pictures of their gods everywhere. Venus and Mars, you know, all naked and stuff. It's just all nasty. It should goes to show you that something's wrong with this. The priests are not allowed to have wives, and then you're wondering why the priests are molesting these little boys. Something's wrong. Nobody's asked questions though. So that's why we come with the spirit to just try to warn people. Like Ezekiel 3:17 says, come to give the people a warning. throw the information out there. We're not trying to convert no one. We're not trying to tell no one they're doing wrong. We're not trying to say we're right. We're just bringing the information that's out there that people haven't dug up and found yet. All right. So with that in mind, we'd like to close it out and say shalom and all praises to the Most High, Ahaya.